Hey, my name's Justin, and this is The Art of Repair. And today I'm going to show you how to take an S7 display, or any display really, and roll on either OCA or a polarizer. Now, calm down. Before we get started here, I do just want to say that I looked over and I'm like, hey, it's time to make a video. Let's go ahead and grab some gloves, put them on, you know what I'm saying? And I realized that I'm completely out today. So I'm still going to go ahead and make my video, but this is a disclaimer. You absolutely 100% need gloves anytime you're doing any kind of refurbishing, because let's be real here, it's a clean process and your hands ain't clean. So always wear gloves. The only reason I'm not wearing them today is because I looked over and I was out. So video still got to get made, so here we are. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. Today's video is going to be a cool one because it's a 2-for-1. What do you mean, Justin, 2-for-1? We're going to learn 2 skills with 1 technique. We're going to be able to roll on OCA, and we're going to be able to roll on a polarizer once you learn this technique. For today's demonstration, I will be rolling the OCA on, as I do not have the polarizer on me to do this display, or we would do that instead. I've got a Galaxy S7 display here. I've already taken everything off and cleaned it up pretty good. Without a doubt, you need an absolutely clean display to do this, because we are going to be sealing on a piece of glue that's going to have some glass put on it. So cleanliness is of the utmost importance today. So what are we going to be doing this with, Justin? Well, I've got myself a good old-fashioned vacuum laminator here. This is an old school tool. This is a fully manual unit. There is nothing automatic about it. I think that outside of a manual hand roller, that this is an invaluable skill, because it really just teaches you it really teaches you the process. And if you go slow with it, instead of having like an automatic machine where you just boop, hit a button, you can see what's going on. And if you know what's going on, as soon as you have issues, you're going to be able to come down there and pinpoint it. Okay, so vacuum laminator, I've heard that one before, but this doesn't look anything like that. Well, I guess you could say this is a vacuum polarizer laminator versus like an OCA laminator that's going to be pulling out the bubbles. But at the same point, at a base fundamental level, these are both vacuum laminators. So there's this one, and then I guess I'll throw a picture right there of the other one so you can kind of see the difference. But one is meant for rolling everything on, and one is meant for pulling out the bubbles and, you know, kind of giving you your base display. Okay. All right. So let's get this little demo, and we're going to stop the video for just a second here, just so I can reiterate the fact that I am not wearing gloves right now. I should absolutely be wearing gloves right now. You need to be wearing gloves right now. If you're not wearing gloves, you don't need to be doing refurbishing on any kind of professional level. If you're doing it for yourself, knock yourself out. But we're working with chemicals, and we're working with clean things. And chemicals and clean things definitely require gloves. Gloves, gloves, gloves. Okay, now we can continue. All right, so we can see the whole setup here now. You know, when I open it up, you can see what's going on. I just want to go over a few things and just the base process before we actually do this, and you see me just do one, because there's a few things you need to know. A lot of times when people buy these, they always try to buy the most automatic version possible. Well, yes, this is more efficient in the long term. If you are training and you are going to be the master refurbisher in your lab, you need to know this stuff at a bare fundamental level. If you don't know it, you can't troubleshoot it. If you can't troubleshoot it, you're going to have angry customers. Remember that, okay? So let's take a look here and see what I've got going on in terms of how mine is set up. So I'm going to pull this forward a little bit, and you're going to see here that this is not just a piece of metal, okay? I've got a piece of Kapton tape here. Why do I have a piece of Kapton tape here? The reason I do is, one, it keeps it clean, okay? If things get real messed up, gummy, then it is going to protect the rest of it, okay? So we want to keep our machines good because we want to keep them rolling, okay? Now, 2, and this number 2 thing I'm about to tell you right now is one of those things that I'm sure that some of you guys are going to be like, oh, I had that problem. Oh, man. Okay, so every one of these little dots here is a vacuum hole. What's happening is there's a vacuum unit in here that is pulling suction, and anything that sits on top of it is going to close that off, and it's going to stick to it, okay? The problem is, if you can tell here, I'm going to just stick a display here for just a second, there are a lot of holes that are just left wide open. and that's going to kill the suction of the situation. So you're going to put something on there, you're going to turn it on, and you see how it doesn't move or anything. But if all of these weren't covered up, well, dang, it's just going to start pulling air from there too. So what I've done here, and I'm sure that if anybody's seen some of my older videos around, probably from the beginning, you'll see that we've actually poked holes in just the ones that we need. I'd say that most displays fall within a certain size range here, and everything outside of this display is pretty much covered, but everything on the inside of it has a hole poked in it. These holes, you can use a SIM card ejection tool. It's nothing crazy. You don't have to go buy some special tool or anything like that. You can use a thumbtack, whatever you got to do. So we know now that there's some Kapton tape here to protect the top of the plate, and I've poked holes in just the ones that kind of correlate to the size of a display. Okay, now you're going to do that for this side, and you're going to do that for this side. Okay, because as you can tell, there's tons of little holes up here, and this suction unit in here, this actual vacuum unit, is doing it for both of them. Okay, so if one loses vacuum, the other one's going to lose vacuum. It's kind of a combined thing here. Okay, now you can see also that there's a little lip down here. This little lip is kind of like your guide. Okay, so whenever you put your display on there, I'm going to move it down here. Even though my suction holes are up here, I'm just going to move it down here so you can see better on the video. I always line my display up right where the actual LCD starts, not the glass IC area above it, but right where the actual display starts. So whether it's an LCD or an AMOLED, you'll see that dark black bar right where the display starts, and you're going to line that up directly with that lip. Okay, that lip, if you come down here, corresponds directly to the center of this roller. Now that's really, really important. If it's not directly aligned with the center of the roller, it is not going to work properly. Okay, so keep that in mind. That lip, it's your guide. It's there for a reason. Okay, so we've got our display here. We've got it lined up. At this point, we're like, okay, cool. We've got it on there. We're going to go ahead and turn the vacuum on. As we can tell now that the vacuum is on, and since we don't have any vacuum loss anywhere, except for up here right now because there's nothing there, listen though, the sound. The sound is going to be your key here. So we can see that this is stuck on here. It's not going anywhere. Okay, I want you to listen for a second. I'm going to put this piece of OCA up here, and you're going to hear a change in the vacuum. That's your key. That lets you know that this is pulling the maximum amount of vacuum it can, and that there are no holes. If you don't hear that deeper sound, then it's not on there right. Sometimes you see that, how we let go and it got a little bit higher. There we go. That's your key. Okay. Go ahead and take that off. You can hear that sudden change, and we're going to go ahead and turn it off. So the deal here is that we need to take a piece of OCA and we need to apply it directly flat to one of these bad boys right here, these displays. Okay. And, you know, if you've tried it with a hand roller, it's pretty difficult, but I will say that that is an even more fundamental skill that, truthfully, you need to learn that too, and we are going to go over it at some point. So you can see your OCA here, and we can also see that it's got multiple different layers. Okay, these different layers come off as part of the actual application process. So we've got our original layer right here. Okay, that's a protection layer. And we're going to set it on top here because we want to align it. We want to make sure that it's perfectly aligned with the display itself. And you'll see that there's another piece of larger plastic here. You can see where, you see that right there, where it keeps going past the actual OCA itself. That's there for a reason. That's there to allow you to pull it off properly. Okay, so what that means is that this larger piece of plastic right here needs to be facing away from the plate up here. So that means we're going to put it down flat with the larger piece of plastic down toward the display. Okay, if you have it the other way, what's going to happen is you're going to get up here and you're going to peel it off, and it's going to ruin the piece of OCA if you don't do it properly. That's why this is here. It's there for a reason. Okay, so we're going to lay it down flat. And, you know, I know it's kind of harder to see what's going on here, but the internal piece of OCA, the glue, that smaller piece on the inside, needs to pretty much directly align itself with the display. So I've got my display lined up with the guideline. I'm going to turn it on, okay? And it doesn't have to be perfectly clean at this point, because cleaning, that last final polish before you put the OCA on there is going to be right before you roll it, okay? So if there's a piece of smudge on it right now, don't kill yourself. Don't keep cleaning it over and over and over while you're doing this part. We're going to take it, like I said, large piece of plastic down. We're going to line it up. And you know, I will say that me personally, I always give it maybe like a ½ millimeter extra at the bottom. I kind of let it come down just a little bit. And that's just because there's play in the machine, and sometimes when you lift it up and roll it back over, it moves a little bit. And you'll end up seeing that at the top, and it'll give you bubbles. And those bubbles aren't good. So I always give it maybe like a ½ millimeter at the bottom. Maybe I can show you guys. I don't know if you'll be able to see it here. It's very difficult to see. But a little bit of extra at the end is always good, okay? Now, once we have it there, we're going to slowly pull it back here if you haven't already. And this top part has the suction. So I'm going to come down. You remember that sound I told you about? We don't hear that sound. Since we don't hear that sound, we know that the piece of OCA, the plastic, everything that's holding it together has not suctioned itself to this top plate yet, okay? I will say that over time, with experience, I've noticed that many of these need a little bit of a helping hand. So what I do is I press the middle here. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? There was a suction change. It got deeper. I bet you when I pick this up, oh man, it is sitting right there. Okay, so I'm going to take the camera here and I'm going to show you something. It is like halfway through here, okay? That is where the roller starts. If this is not lined up properly, by using your guide down here, this little part right here, I don't know if you can see that. If you don't line up your display here, it is not going to line up here. If it doesn't line up there, you're going to have a lot of trouble rolling it. Okay. So now that we've got it there, and do you remember how we had the big piece of plastic facing down? We can take our tape now and we can pull it off. Okay. And if you watch my older video on how to actually remove that, you'll see how it's done. And I will be doing it in this video, but you're gonna kind of see how I do it as a full technique there. But you can watch a more in-depth video in one of my other videos, which I'll put at the end of the video so you guys can go watch that as well. And at that point, we'll be ready to roll it on, okay? So we've got it up here, it's properly done. Sometimes I even just press down a little bit. You hear that? It gets a little bit deeper. That gives that full suction. We don't hear that small hiss. Okay? And yeah, at this point we would take off the plastic and we pull and roll it. Now, okay, Justin, you're making this seem like it's super easy to go ahead and get done, but can you go ahead and show me anyway? No problem, I got you. So, obviously, you want to do this in a clean environment. If you've got access to a clean room, or you've got the ability to get one of the small clean rooms, you can get one for about $1,000. It's not a big deal. If you're going to be doing this as a refurbishing lab, you need to invest in proper materials and proper tools. So again, gloves and a clean room. So at this point, we've got our OCA here. We can pretend we've pulled it off. It's exposed, and we want to put it on here. Now, a lot of these automatic machines do it automatically, and when there's bubbles, you don't understand why. So I'm going to teach you why there's sometimes bubbles now. Whenever you put it back down and you roll it over, because obviously this is the next step here, it's not actually flattening and just pushing it straight down. It's not like a little sandwich or anything like that. This roller at the end, this roller is actually what's going to be putting it on there. It sits a little bit lower, so the piece of OCA itself isn't completely flat. One side's got a little bit of a dip like that, and as you roll it, it's pushing that dip across it to line it up with the glass. Whenever I get to this point, everybody, you know, this is where I see a lot of people mess up, because they are trying to go as fast as possible. They just, woof! They grab it and they rip it off, okay? But they get bubbles and they don't understand why. So what I do is, you can see my hand, I grab it right here, okay? And I'm gonna take my thumb and I'm gonna press it on the top. And what I'm gonna do is I'm slowly gonna use my thumb and I'm gonna press. And I'm just gonna go nice and slow. And when I get to the end, it's gonna be perfect every single time. Why? Because we took our time, okay? Now, I know everything I showed you was probably a little bit confusing, and I know this video is a little bit longer than normal, but there are a lot of small nuanced things here that really need to be paid attention to make sure that you're doing this correctly every single time. All right, so I've got some pieces of tape. Like I said, if you haven't seen the video on how to actually remove the coatings off of these things, I'll leave the link at the end of the video and the little thing where it says go check out this other video, and you can check that out just to get some more information. But I do use some tested tape or red tape, whatever I've got here to actually pull the tape up. I am going to clean off this display one last time, and I'm just going to run through the entire process. All right, get a little bit of 99% ISO here. I'm going to bring it all the way to the back here so it's nice and flat. I'm going to turn it on so that the display doesn't move. Okay? And I'm just going to go in one direction. If you go back and forth, you're just going to pull dust from one side to the other. Alright, I'm going to pull off my first piece of plastic here. I'm going to take the large side. You can see that there's two different sizes on here. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And I'm going to put the larger side flat down while using the smaller internal one to line the display up. Okay? So I'm lining it up. It is perfectly aligned. And I'm going to move it down like a ½ millimeter. ½ millimeter, that is not much. Okay? Be careful here. Right? Now that I've got it lined up, everything's sitting here. Like I said, you don't need to worry about the display being as clean as possible right now. We're just going to come down with the top. We're going to set it down, and we're going to listen for that audio cue. There we go. You hear that? See how I had to put that clamping action on there? A lot of the cheap Chinese stuff is like this. You just gotta make it work sometimes. I haven't met one that does it every single time, whether it's a manual one or a fully automatic one. But now that we hear that deeper sound, we know that we can lift it up. And we're going to see that it's pretty much halfway across this little roller here. I'm going to take my tape and I'll put it on the corner here because the corner is the weakest point. And when I pull this thing off, I'm not going to pull it away. I'm going to pull it down with the actual OCA, okay? We don't want the suction to lose its suction on the OCA there. So it's kind of hard to see here, but yeah, you should be able to see it. I want to pull it, and you can see I got that top layer coming off here in just a second. And you see I'm pulling down with my finger. I've got my finger pressed against the plate, okay? You can take two more fingers, and you can press them down like this. Again, we don't want it to pull away from the plate. Alright, now it's flat, it's on there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully set it down on top. I'm going to put my thumb right here. I'm going to press down a little bit on the top, and I'm going to slowly pull this forward. Look at that. We have a beautiful, absolutely perfect roll-on of OCA. This can be used 100% with polarizers as well, okay? Let's go ahead and clean it up a little bit so we can take a look-see. Sometimes there's a little glue from the plate, so we always want to make sure that the work we've done is proper. Oh, wow. Look at that. That is awesome. How about that? Like I said, you can use this on polarizers, you can use this on OCA, anything that you have to roll on that's, you know, made in a similar fashion, this is going to work great for. And like I said, if you need to learn more about the technique of taking the tape off, there is an entire video dedicated just to that I'm going to throw at the end of this video. So, hope you learned something today. Don't forget, guys, if you're interested in any of the tools I use, check out the description below. I even have my own custom tools that I sell down there as well, that literally do not exist anywhere else on the planet, except from The Art of Repair. I also have a Patreon where you can help support the channel so I can create even better, high quality content.